Hi there, I'm Jen, this is Remembered Reads, and this is going to be my January book haul, which is going to include books from two Bookoutlet orders, one of which was the Boxing Day sale, which was actually really a week-long sale, and because I ordered on virtually the last day, that came in January. Also, they had a little extra 24-hour additional 15% off deal last week, so there was another order right at the end of the month. Plus a few other things. So, to start with, let's look at the Boxing Day stuff. So the first one from that box was Anthony de Sau's Barnacle Love, which is about a Portuguese fisherman who shows up in Newfoundland. I really enjoyed Anthony de Sau's Kicking the Sky, which I read a couple of years ago. It was actually one of my favorite books of 2015, so I am definitely looking forward to reading this. The next book that I got, which was deeply discounted, is I Don't Know What I Want, but I Know It's Not This, which sounds like a fantastic midlife crisis kind of book. I really enjoy the occasional self-help book, so I thought I'd read that because I'm sort of in the process of changing careers, so I probably should have gotten it out of the library, but it was so discounted that I couldn't not buy it. Next up is John Doyle's The World is a Ball. John Doyle was, or actually might still be, a columnist mostly in the entertainment section of the Globe and Mail, but at one point they had him writing columns in the sports section during the World Cup. He is originally from Ireland. I think he moved to Canada as a teenager, and he had a whole series of columns that were about sort of the social positioning of international football and that kind of thing. So, Joy, Madness, and the Meaning of Soccer is the subheading on this. So I'm looking forward to reading this because I enjoyed his entertainment writing. So. Next up is When She Was Queen by M.G. Vizinji, who I talk about his books all the time. It's kind of different because usually he writes about people from Tanzania, but in this one they are Indian from Kenya moving to both Toronto and the Midwestern US. So a little bit different than some of his stuff. Looking forward to that. Next up, In the Shadow of the Banyan, which I've seen this pop up from a lot of people on BookTube lately. So this is set during the Cambodian Civil War, and I anticipate it's going to be depressing, but I've heard a lot of good things, so. Next up is Odalisque from Neil Stephenson's Baroque cycle, which, when I read these originally, there were only 3 books, and apparently it's expanded to either 6 or 9, so I don't know when that happened, but yeah. There are suddenly a lot more books in this series. Next up is Wason Choi's All That Matters. I mean, he's very well known for The Jade Peony, but I've never read anything else of his, so I think this will be interesting. It was a big family drama. It was shortlisted for the Giller Prize, and it won the Trillium Book Award, so yeah, that should be interesting. Next up is Aziz Ansari's Modern Romance. From what I've heard, it's less comedy than it is talking about the culture of dating. So, I don't know, I'm curious. And I enjoyed, what's this Netflix show? Master of None, so I thought I would look this up. And usually when a comedian writes a book, and I've talked about this before, I'd like to get the audiobook because you want to hear their voice. This sounds like it was co-written with a sociologist, or at least researched by the sociologist, so it sounds like it's less comedic, so I figured I might as well read it because it was so discounted. Next up is Madeleine Tien's Simple Recipes. This, I believe, was her first novel, so I'll be curious to read it because it's always interesting to go back and, especially someone who's become more hyped and started winning the big awards, to go back and read what they read at the beginning. So this is, I believe, a family drama. A woman searching for her past. So yeah, looking forward to that. And finally, The Reluctant Fundamentalist, which was shortlisted for a bunch of awards the year it came out and has become a movie. You can see that's the film cover. I think it takes the form of the guy is telling you the story and it's written in the first person and here's what happened to him. So I think that's an interesting storytelling method. So looking forward to reading that. So that was the Boxing Day pile. So then I swore off going on Bookoutlet for a while. But that didn't mean I swore off getting books because I did end up ordering a few other things. In one of my past Bookoutlet hauls, I picked up books 2 and 3 in Django Wexler's The Shadow Campaigns, and I didn't have the first book, so I had an Amazon gift card, so I picked up The Thousand Names, which is the first book in that series, so I figured I'd start with that. I also ended up ordering a couple of things on Book Depository, which are Harry Parker's Anatomy of a Soldier, which is about a British military captain who either drives over or steps on an IED and loses his legs, and it's the transformative months that follow, but narrated by items and things, which I think is really interesting. I saw some interesting interviews with the author, so I really wanted to pick it up. Yeah. And the other one that I picked up on Book Depository was The Uncle's Story, Witty Ihimera, and I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. He's the one who wrote Whale Rider, and I saw this pop up on a bunch of reading lists from a couple of Australian booktubers, and I was realizing at that point that I've read almost nothing from New Zealand, or from either New Zealand or Australia, which surprised me. So I thought, yeah, I'm gonna pick that up. And finally, I picked up Stefan Hetman's War and Turpentine. This is about, it's based on the author's grandfather's diaries from the First World War. So since that's my pet topic, I really wanted to pick this up. And I found it for $9 US, which I couldn't believe. I was so shocked. Because I figured I was planning to pick this up because I'm going to be in Belgium for a family thing in August, and I thought I'll buy that then. And I don't have to. And then we get to the end of the month. And my sister sent me a text and said, "Did you know Bookoutlet's having another sale?" So I was weak and placed another order. And this just came the other day. So the first thing that I picked up in there is Persona Q, Shadow of the Labyrinth, which is an adaptation, a manga adaptation of the game. It's a 3DS game. So I had owned the game, but I hadn't finished it, and it was in one of the boxes that was misplaced when we moved the last time. So I don't actually know how it finished. I mean, I could read the spoilers online, but I thought I might as well read this. Now I'll know how it ends. The next thing I picked up was Star Wars Rise of the Empire, which is a bind-up of the Tarkin novel, A New Dawn, which is a Rebels novel, and then a few short stories as well. So that's gonna be fun, because I mean, I feel like a lot of these Star Wars franchise books are not the best, but I enjoy getting the extra backstories, and yeah. Next up is The Bosnia List, which is a memoir about the Balkan Wars in the early 90s. And as with all of these kind of memoirs, I anticipate this being depressing, but interesting. It sounds unkind to say I'm looking forward to reading it, but I'm curious to read more about it, so. Next up is Our Story, Aboriginal Voices on Canada's Past, which is by a variety of different authors, and I think it should be interesting. I always try to go through the Canadian section and get some specifically Canadian books, and I thought this was a good example, especially when there's been so much discussion about sort of ownership of Indigenous stories, a lot of which is because of the whole Joseph Boyden controversy that's going on. But just in general, I think it's an interesting thing. So I figured, you know, this is definitely, I guess people use the hashtag own voices for that kind of thing. So that's specifically what this has a goal of. So yeah. Next up is Conscience, which is about two brothers, one of whom was a pacifist during the First World War, both of whom ended up in the military, but one of whom was a conscientious objector originally, and the other of whom was a, what is it called? Like a military minister? So anyway, that should be interesting, and yeah, you know, I always enjoy First World War histories. So another one that I picked up because it was 99 cents is The Serenity Mysteries, which this is in the Turkish Delight mystery series by Mehmet Murat Sommer. It's described as like Agatha Christie with drag queens, which just sounds kind of silly, but hey, I always like to look for a new mystery story, and sometimes a silly concept like that ends up being really awesome, so I thought I'd give this a try. Next up is Marine Park, which is a collection of short stories by Mark Cusano. As far as I know, they're supposed to be like portraits of a place around Brooklyn, I think. Yeah, this was one of those 99 cent ones where I thought, it's so cheap, why not be curious and read it? And finally, I got Tracy Lindbergh's Birdie. It's about a Cree woman from northern Alberta who goes someplace in BC, Gibbons, BC, looking for family, home, and understanding. So yeah, that should be interesting. And there we go. I would hold up the books, but I would weigh myself down because this is a giant pile. So yeah, I swore off buying books for the new year, and that clearly didn't happen. I was weak. Okay, self-control will be for February, right? We'll see about that. All right, that's it for this. I'll see you next time. Ciao.